Hi, this is the first episode of the podcast of Live, Laugh, Lockdown, featuring Trevor Connerly, Jordan Simmons, and Gabrielle Logan. So, the first question that I kind of thought of, and it might be a good icebreaker, is like, what genres do you listen to in your free time?
Do you want to start by answering that yourself?
Yeah, so like a lot of music I listen to in my free time is just like a lot of pop music, a lot of hip hop music, a lot of R&B. I listen to rock music as well, just depending. It varies a lot. On occasion, I'll listen to some jazz music or some classical music, but not as much. But it varies quite a bit. I don't like to stick with one genre since I tend to get pretty bored pretty easily with it. So that's my five. I think I can count.
So it also for me depends on what I'm doing. If I'm studying, usually I find some upbeat, usually soundtrack, um, like video game, movie. Usually it's like some form of rock, bit of metal. But when I'm just walking around or listening for enjoyment, listen to classical and honestly a lot of just undefined genres or like ungenre groups.
Or
Music that doesn't quite fit into one category.
that's fair.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm almost like a tiny bit of the opposite. Like once I find a genre that I'm very interested in, I stick with it. And so it's mainly the obvious one to most of you is just anime music. I listen to that constantly when I'm studying or when I'm just kind of relaxing or trying to get my mental health straightened up. Um, but it also differs when when I go to the gym, I listen to R&B, obviously, or I'm just taking a walk. Um, I'm listening to rock music. It varies, but at the same time, once I find a certain genre that I really, really like, I mainly just stick with it because it's just very therapeutic.
Mhm.
So for listeners, you might be wondering why we're talking about genres. Because this episode, we're going to be talking about the psychological effects of genres and how that affects how we think, what we feel. Yeah, genres.
Which kind of like ties into the second question I was kind of thinking about was like, how do you implement music in your day to day life? We got both kind of talked about this a little bit, but like for me, for example, a lot of times when I'm like getting ready to go to bed, a lot of times I'm listening to like slower music to help calm myself down and get ready to sleep, for example. Or like, well, when I wake up, I tend to listen to more like upbeat music. So it's like the full 180. So it, the different types of music have like different types of effects in that regard, for example. Um, so yeah.
So what kind of music do you listen to when you try to sleep? What
Um,
calm down music do you have?
oh yeah. So I tend to listen to like R&B music. I'm a big fan of The Weeknd, for example. Since a lot of his music tends to be very slow, very kind of down tempo. Sometimes I'll just listen to like slow jazz music as well to help me relax and wind down. So those are my two suggestions.
So uh, one of the reasons why a lot of like slow jazz or slow music is great for calming down is because part of it is tempo. We learned, Trevor and I took a class about this music and healing. And one of the topics we talked about was how the tempo of music can actually affect your heart rate just a little. So slower tempos help slow down your heart rate a little, thus helping you feel calmer. While listening to fast music in the morning ups your heartbeat, making you more energized. So Jordan, what kind of scenarios do you listen to music in?
Um, Mostly when I'm just trying to get ready for the day. Um, I mostly just listen to something that's like not too upbeat, but also not too calm. Because I know how I get in the mornings. I'm just like really, really tired. But when I listen to certain music, um, it's just I can feel either one way or the other. And so I mostly just it's not even, it doesn't even have to be an artist. I'm just listening to like just different productions with like gives me like chill vibes, but also kind of keeps me energized at the same time. Um, and and you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be like a certain artist. It could just be something random on YouTube. Um, and when I'm going to bed, I usually listen to music with like a drone to help me calm down. Like so, it's like very meditative. I learned that in music history with one of my professor Harvard um, back in my sophomore year, and I and we were kind of learning that sometimes it can be a little. I mean, it's complicated. I barely remember, but usually
Music is a complicated subject.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's more
Just
complicated.
a little.
Just a little bit. But having that drone is like puts me in a trance. I'm like, okay, it's time to calm down. It's the end of the day. I'm here with my cup of tea, or I'm like doing something on my phone. I'm just chilling. Um, and um, I'm just that type of person that will just listen to anything. I don't care what it is. And it's it's funny how different types of music in general can affect me by the slightest moment. Like it doesn't even have to be like a drastic moment or like, oh, I hear this music at a party, I'm at a big party, I'm supposed to be pumped up, but later on they play like a soft music or like a slow dancing one. I'm like, oh, gotta just to calm down a bit. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I've been listening to the Hamilton soundtrack recently for no real good reason. I just decided to. And because I have free Spotify, because I don't pay for music, it always pulls the tracks up randomly. And it's such an emotional roller coaster going from a song about fighting for your country to breaking up with your husband. And like as soon as the song switches, the brain just immediately goes with it. So I'm like, awesome. I'm like, yeah, fight for the country and stuff. And then, how dare you cheat on me in just a split second.
I think that's like part of the reason where like I don't like I'm kind of like and don't like albums sometimes, since I might go from like one song to the next. Like, no, I want to be in this mood, so I'm only gonna listen to specific songs. I was just like, but I think that might be me. I think I might need to break that.
No, I'm totally like that as well. When I study, I'm very particular about the kind of music, and even the subject I study affects the kind of music I listen to. I can't listen to anything with lyrics when I study, or else I'm thinking about the lyrics. I have to like listen to a lot of background, like almost elevator like music when studying, like reading.
The Wii theme.
I think I'd be dancing too much if the Wii theme came on. Which actually is a great segue into, so music genres have psychological, like studied effects. Slow music helps calm you. Upbeat music, pop motivates. Something though that always needs to be remembered is personal tastes and experiences do change this. Wii theme music, for instance, it's my childhood. That's nostalgia. I'm never not going to jive to it.
Like, yeah, for me it's just like kind of funny. Like I'll dance or like be silly like every time I think of it. I was like,
yeah,
yeah, or something like that.
I want to play music majors will jam to anything.
I mean, yeah, that is also true. We're open to jamming to anything.
Well, I was like thinking about the drone thing that Jordan brought up earlier. I was like, why would that be relaxing? And it might go back to like the whole slow tempo thing, because of like
Or no tempo.
no tempo. It's so
It's
slow,
drone.
dude. It's so slow that it's just like 1 BPM. But that might cause the heart rate to slow down. So that might be part of the reason why it's so relaxing. Unlike the Wii theme, that might be like very energetic since it's like very bossa nova like. So.
And we'll be getting into the droning in the next episode of the podcast. We'll talk a little more about drones and keep listening. So tune in for that.
So yeah, sometimes drones are kind of used for specific things, and like sometimes just songs in general are kind of made for specific reasons. Like there's actually this rap song by Kendrick Lamar. I think it's either called, yeah, I believe it's called Drink by Kendrick Lamar, which kind of like demonstrates like the effects of like alcohol. It kind of tells like a story of alcohol. And there's actually kind of a subgenre of like rap listeners who like very like really like storytelling, that really like very smart and thought out lyrics in that way. Not necessarily they're anti-drinking or whatever, but they kind of really like story-driven lyrics and stuff like that, for example. So that could kind of builds like a sense of community, like in the music and healing class that me and Gabrielle were in. One thing about music is that it can help kind of build community, like with like the drone kind of deep meditation. There's probably kind of like a community around that.
Mm-hmm. There was this actually accounts like a lot of commissioned music as well falls into this, or a way of building community or a sense of support for other people to draw people who've experienced something similar. In Japan, there was one of my favorite songs is Hanawasaku, which was commissioned and written for after a terrible incident in, I can't remember the year, 2011. There was a terrible earthquake and flood and like a nuclear collapse that happened in Japan all within a very short amount of time. And it was devastating. It killed lots of people. It was an absolute tragedy. And there's the song that was commissioned to write for it. There's a song that was commissioned for it. That it's such a beautiful, moving song about the kind of like the dead speaking to the living, saying to continue living, to move on, like life continues and you need to continue as well. And it's when I got to live in Japan for a while, I learned it on the harp and I got to play it for some people, and it always brought tears to their eyes because it's, for them, it's so associated with the event, but also memories of lost people, of moving on, and general community, like pulling together of the people. And even though the song is written in like a very pop style, it has a relatively like fast tempo. It's not what we would consider like a motivational song. That's not a song you'd work out to or anything. So even though its genre would be like considered pop or like have this effect, it doesn't, because the story behind it and the meaning behind it has a completely different connotation, which gives a different psychological effect for people.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to connect to music kind of helping people in a way. Excuse me if I'm getting my words wrong. But it especially helps with people, and I usually think of this in a more personal and mental way, where where some people have anxiety or depression and um just have moments where they just kind of want to get away from reality in just for like a split second. It doesn't even have to be that long. Um, I definitely have one of those moments, and so we I technically use music as an escape. Um, Mainly, I mean, obviously anime, but that's too obvious. But it's usually I just listen to a song that um I listen to a song that mostly I know that is related to what I'm feeling right now. Um, and it's just a reminder for me that I, like as in, I think of what Gabby said, I can't remember. I'm still here. I'm like, you're still here. So obviously there's nothing more greater than that. And so and so music is what makes me understand that life is so precious. And so no matter what you're doing, and excuse me, my throat. Um, and basically just just be happy that you are still here, like living somewhat of a best life, and you have people there for you that are most likely going through the same thing. So it's that mentality that we have to think about when it comes to music. And that's what's very important nowadays. Not many people think about that nowadays.
Mm. Especially now with COVID. Hopefully, fingers crossed, uh, we're slowly battling it, but definitely, especially for the past year, it's almost been a whole year now. It's been over a year now.
Yeah.
It's been over a year. Whoa! Remember our 2-week lockdown?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But since we're in a time like this where we're not able to always hang out with other people as much as we want, or able to just have that connection with other people, music is a great way of remaining connected with people through sharing experiences, finding music that speaks to you and speaks to a community that you can feel a part of. Music that you can just let out your emotions, negative and positive emotions. You can just express yourself in the room, and just generally trying to remain upbeat in a very difficult time. Like, yeah, music is so important and like really useful, and has been useful, and hopefully it will remain useful.
Humans are very interactive creatures. We need we need community. We need community. We need connection. So this pandemic is hard.
Yes, definitely. Now, I think our podcast will be, this episode will be drawing to a close soon. Before though, I want to bring up a topic that is often brought up when it comes into like genres and specific kinds of genres. What's good, bad genres, if those exist. It's called the Mozart Effect. Do either of you know the Mozart Effect?
Yeah, I know the general gist of it.
Yeah.
It's basically like you listen to like Mozart or just like really any classical music in general, and kind of like
Get smarter. I remember, I most notably was used in the first Incredibles movie. It was one of the shorts. I don't know if anyone saw the shorts, but there was a Jack Attack short where you had, I think, Carly, the girl, the babysitter, was babysitting Jack, and she put on Mozart because Mozart makes babies smarter. And she wished her parents had played Mozart while she was a baby, because then she'd be smarter. And it's surprisingly been like something a lot of people have still continued to use, believe, argue for. And yeah, it's the idea of classical music because of probably the class behind classical music, and the technicalities behind it. It makes you smarter. It doesn't. Answer, simple right there. It doesn't make you smarter. It can give the illusion of being smarter because a lot of people listen to classical music while studying. And if you ask, yeah?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it's just music in general. It isn't specifically tied to classical music.
Yeah, it's not tied to classical music at all. Yeah, the idea is classical music helps you focus, which there is some science behind, like studies behind proving classical music can help you focus. I myself cannot study to classical music, and I know many people who cannot. If you study, if your job is classical music, you get too caught up listening to the music itself. You're like, ooh, listen to that violin solo. Or like, that's some nice contrapuntal movement there. Like,
well, that's definitely me.
Me jamming over to Mozart's Figaro always. But the idea is music, and what they've found is music can help people focus. And some genres are more common for helping you focus than others. And classical music has been a very common study-focused music. Again, not everyone can do it. Can like listen, or not everyone listens to classical study, and it does not make you smarter.
I also had another question because this actually brought me out of curiosity learning it a couple years ago. Well, keeping in my head a couple years ago. But I also heard the rumor about classical music is that sometimes when you listen to it for a long time, it actually makes your brain more complex. Now I wonder if that's true for some cases, because I don't know, because like it's like when I've been told by my parents like this like constantly too. It's like when you listen to classical music, your thinking becomes a lot more complex. There's like a little more variety of like what you think versus listening to certain contemporary music. It doesn't matter what it is, and not having that same effect. Is that true? I've always been curious about that because I don't know if that's just a myth that everybody just makes up, or if it's actually true. You're listening to it, and then all of a sudden you can come up with these crazy ideas. I'm wondering.
What do you think, Trevor?
Like I just doubt it in my head, since I'm just kind of like, I don't think it makes it more complex. Like it activates like different parts of your brain, but I don't think it will have that much. Like if it does, that it's more applicable to music in general, not specifically classical music. But if it, I'm just, oh no, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not like a scientist, so I'm not gonna straight up say that it isn't. But
it's a disclaimer that we should have thrown at the beginning of this episode. We're all music students. We're not. None of us are music therapists. None of us are scientists. These are just stuff that we've read and learned about, things we've heard, and we've learned by classes and then our own opinions. Disclaimer at the end of the episode. Okay. And my disclaim student opinion is also that I don't think it is classical music specifically. I think it is music in general.
Right.
This I think ties into Mozart Effect is the idea that classical music is more complex than modern music, which isn't true. It's like different kinds of complex, especially as music students, we learn about all this kind of styles, techniques used in music composition, and stuff that we learn to have to pick out and like hear. And then I also vividly remember learning pop music is super easy. It's just 4 chords. When that is like, yeah, a lot of pop music is like that, but the technique comes in with how do we arrange those 4 chords? I was having a conversation a while ago with a friend about metal music, like heavy metal. And we started listening to the Dragon Force band, Dragon Force, which 10 out of 10 would recommend. Great motivation. And we're listening to it, and we started hearing all these like two measure phrase. And then the next verse, it extends to a 4 measure, and it like just builds smoothly. And we realize it is extremely complicated. But we're not taught to notice that. At least we, as classical music students, are not taught to really think about other genres. And if we're not taught about it, most sorry about that, guys. So I noticed slightly different layout. We were using Zoom, and then our time ran out, and it just cut us off. So we're switching to Google now. Sorry about that. So as I was going to say, but pretty much all genres have their own different kinds of complex and like difficulties and complexities. And I think in answer to Jordan's query about classical music making you have like a more complex thought, I agree with Trevor. It's probably just music in general and not classical specific.
Then I've been told a lie.
Well, not entirely. I think music does help like give people different thought process and like complex, since it uses different parts of the brain.
It's just not classical though.
I just don't think it's classical specific. Yeah.
It's like a half truth.
Say that again, Trevor.
It's like a half truth. It's like partly true, but not completely.
Half truth, yeah. Half truth is still not full truth though. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. We'll be releasing 2 more episodes of this podcast. Well, 2 more episodes of us discussing. Next week, we'll be discussing about activities you can do while listening to music, which sneak peek, we'll be talking about deep listening. And then the next one, last episode, or 3rd episode, we'll be talking about music therapy versus therapeutic music. And then at the very end, we'll be making a workshop that we'll be playing music and talking more about this, but giving it more applicable things and not just theoretical us talking. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy. I hope to see you next week. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.